My phone buzzed at 7:12 a.m., that fragile hour when bad news feels believable because your brain hasn't fully woken. The caller ID read Dad. I hesitated, knowing he never calls this early unless he wants something or is about to announce a verdict. I answered, "Hello." His voice was flat, practiced. "Grandpa died last night. Funeral Friday. He left us everything. You get nothing." I froze, not because I believed him, but because I could hear my mother in the background. Not a soft, sad laugh, but a sharp, bright laugh, like a joke long held. Then her voice, clear enough for me. "Finally, you're out." I could have argued. I could have yelled. I could have begged for details. Instead, I looked at the kitchen table. Grandpa sat there, alive, holding his coffee mug like the world moved only at his discretion. His hands were older, veins visible, thin skin, but steady. His eyes were calm, awake, the kind of certainty that comes from knowing, not ignorance. In front of him, a sealed envelope rested on thick paper, attorney letterhead in the corner, my name handwritten carefully. The seal snapped when opened. Evidence, not sentiment. I didn't respond to my father. I ignored my mother's laugh. I pressed one button, set the call on speaker, and slid the phone across the table, placing it between me and Grandpa like a microphone. My father spoke, assuming my silence meant victory. "You thought you were smart," he said. "Now it doesn't matter. The house, the accounts, the land, everything is ours." I watched Grandpa. No anger, no shock, just a subtle tightening near his jaw, marking each lie like a judge marks falsehoods. My mother leaned closer to the phone, sweetening her tone, trying to make cruelty sound reasonable. "Come to the funeral," she said. "Or don't. Either way, you're not family anymore." Grandpa's gaze shifted to the envelope. He didn't open it. He tapped the seal lightly, a quiet reminder that a line had yet to be read. My father sharpened his tone. "Are you even listening?" "I'm listening," I said, steady. He exhaled, disappointed I wasn't crying. "Good. Then stay away from the attorney's office. We've handled it." That word, handled, made my stomach drop. In his mouth, it meant paperwork, signatures, someone trapped while emotional. Then I noticed Grandpa's left hand resting on a plain manila folder beside the envelope. Not dramatic, just ready. My father continued, gaining confidence from my silence. "We're driving to the cabin tomorrow, taking inventory. We'll send whatever personal junk you left there." My mother laughed again. I stared at the phone screen. The call timer kept counting, 7:13, 7:14. Proof this was real, documented. Then Grandpa leaned slightly toward the phone, slow, deliberate, like a door closing. His eyes met mine for a second. A question without words. "Are you ready?" I nodded. He lifted the sealed envelope to eye level, angled toward me, then set it down, fingers resting on the folder. He listened. My father persisted, voice ordering what he assumed was compliance. "Don't cause problems. You'll embarrass yourself. It's done." Grandpa's expression remained calm. His thumb slid the envelope closer to the phone. Then, leaning in, he spoke clearly, just one word. "Hello." On the other end, laughter stopped abruptly. My father didn't speak. My mother didn't breathe. Silence, broken only by the faint crackle of the phone line. Then my father, thin and disbelieving, "Dad." Grandpa didn't answer immediately. He looked at the envelope, then at me, then back at the phone, deciding whether this was a warning or an official start. Whatever my parents thought they had handled, Grandpa had handled something too, and he had proof on my kitchen table. For several seconds after he said hello, the line was completely silent. Even the small electrical buzz of my kitchen light was audible. Then my father spoke again, thin and disbelieving. "Dad." My mother didn't speak at first. I could hear her breathing, short, sharp inhales, like she was deciding whether to panic or perform. Grandpa didn't allow confusion. He stayed close to the phone and spoke in the same steady tone he used when teaching me how to do things properly the first time. "I heard everything," he said. My father tried to regain control immediately. "Dad, this is a misunderstanding," he said quickly. "We got a call. They said—" "No," Grandpa cut in, still calm. "You didn't say you got a call." He paused briefly. "You said you got everything." My father went silent again. Then my mother's voice slid in, soft and sweet, like honey over broken glass. "Dad, thank God," she said, nearly crying on cue. "We were so scared, we thought—" Grandpa didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. "You laughed," he said. One sentence, one fact. It landed harder than any accusation. My mother's sweetness cracked. "That wasn't," she began. "I'm sitting here. Grandpa continued, with your granddaughter at her kitchen table with a sealed envelope from my attorney. My father's tone shifted, less theatrical, more urgent. Why are you with her? He demanded. She's been poisoning you against us. Grandpa glanced at me for a second, then back to the phone, as if speaking to strangers, not family. I'm with her, he said, because I knew you'd try something the moment you thought you could. My stomach tightened. Grandpa wasn't speculating. He was confirming. My father tried another approach, anger this time, louder, as if volume could erase evidence. Are you even thinking clearly? He snapped. Do you know what day it is? It's Tuesday, Grandpa said evenly. And at 7:12 this morning, you called my granddaughter to tell her I was dead. He paused. And you told her to stay away from the attorney's office. My pulse jumped. That wasn't a casual threat. It was a plan. My mother's voice came back, sharper now. We said that because she causes problems. She shows up and makes scenes. She shows up with documents, Grandpa replied. That's what you're afraid of. Then he changed the direction of the call. He didn't argue morals. He asked a procedural question. Why did your bank receive a death notification request at 6:48 a.m.? My breath caught. I looked at Grandpa because I hadn't known that. My father made a sound, half cough, half choke. What? He said. What are you talking about? Grandpa slid the manila folder toward me and opened it for the first time. Inside was a single printed page with a bank logo and an alert header. He tapped it once and angled it toward the phone, as if my father could see it. This, Grandpa said, is an automated fraud alert. It came to my email at 6:52 a.m., 4 minutes after someone attempted to initiate a deceased customer process under my name. My mother's voice went thin. That's not us. Grandpa didn't argue. He read the only line that mattered. It lists the submitting contact as, he paused and looked down, my son's email. The kitchen suddenly felt smaller. This wasn't just talk anymore. My father had interacted with a system, and systems don't care about family. They care about records. My father raised his voice again, desperate now. That's fake, he snapped. She's showing you fake paperwork. It came from the bank, Grandpa said, not from her. Then Grandpa leaned closer to the speaker, lowering his voice, still calm but colder. Here's what's going to happen. At 9 a.m., I have an appointment at my attorney's office. She will be there, and this call will be played. My mother's breath caught. My father tried to interrupt. Dad, you can't. You're done talking, Grandpa said. There was a brief pause, sharp and stunned, as if my father couldn't process being silenced. Then my mother tried one last shift, her voice trembling in a calculated way. Dad, please. You're not well, she whispered. You shouldn't be traveling. Let us handle it. Grandpa looked at me, then at the envelope, then back at the phone. I'm well enough to sign, he said, and well enough to revoke anything I've ever given you. Revoke. The word landed hard. My parents had been operating on access, accounts, permissions, authority that only worked if Grandpa's control was already theirs. My father's tone turned bitter. If you do this, he hissed, you'll regret it. I already regret what I tolerated, Grandpa replied calmly. Then he looked at me. Put the call recording on, he said quietly. I tapped record. The small red timer appeared on my screen. Grandpa knew exactly what he was doing. He wanted their voices, the laughter, the certainty that I was out, preserved. Because people like my parents rewrite the past when the future stops cooperating. My father realized it too. His voice changed instantly, softer, careful. Dad, he said, listen, we can talk in person. Don't do this in front of strangers. Grandpa's eyes stayed steady. You already did it in front of strangers, he said. You did it at the bank. Then he added the line that made my stomach drop again, and someone was at my cabin this morning. I went still. What? Grandpa didn't look away from the phone. Lockbox tamper alert, he said. 10 minutes ago. My father inhaled sharply, barely audible, but Grandpa noticed. He leaned in. Quiet and precise. Tell your cousin to step away from the door. For a second, the line went silent. Then, faintly in the background, I heard a different voice. Panicked, fast. Hey, someone's here. Grandpa's face didn't change. Mine did. Suddenly, this wasn't just a lie on a phone call. This was real-time movement. Grandpa ended the call with one tap. Clean. Final. Then he slid the sealed envelope toward me. We're going to the attorney, he said. Then we're going to the cabin. My hands shook as I grabbed my keys. Just as we stood, my phone buzzed again. An alert I'd never seen before. Cabin camera. Front porch motion. I opened it and the live feed loaded. A man stood on Grandpa's porch, tool bag over his shoulder, reaching toward the lockbox, while my father's cousin stood behind him, watching the road, waiting for us to be too late. The feed was shaky at first, then sharpened enough to see clearly. A stranger working the lockbox, and behind him, partially hidden, the cousin who always seemed to know someone who could handle paperwork. Grandpa watched the screen without blinking. He didn't gasp or curse. He nodded once, as if observing a trap catching exactly what it was designed to catch. "Record it," he said. I hit screen record, red dot proof. Then Grandpa reached into his pocket and pulled out a second phone. Old school, no apps, no distractions. He called. On the second ring, a man answered. "Sheriff's office." "This is Harold," Grandpa said, steady. "I have a live camera feed showing an attempted unlawful entry at my cabin. I'm alive. My son is falsely reporting my death." A pause. Then the deputy's tone changed instantly. "Mr. Carter," he said, "where are you right now?" "On my way to my attorney," Grandpa replied, "but I need a unit at my cabin immediately." He gave the address from memory. Then he added, almost casually, "And I want the responding unit to note this. A bank death notification attempt was made this morning under my son's email." "Understood," the deputy said. "We're dispatching." Grandpa ended the call and looked at me. "Keys," he said. "Folder, envelope." I grabbed everything. We got into his truck. Grandpa drove despite my protests, the sealed envelope between us like a loaded gun. On the highway, I kept the cabin feed open. The man with the tool bag tried the lockbox again, then stood and gestured to my cousin. No audio needed. His gestures were clear. "It's locked. I need a code." My cousin pointed toward the door, done waiting. Then the locksmith approached the cabin door itself. The lockbox had been step one. Grandpa's jaw tightened for the first time. He wasn't scared. He was offended. "People like that," he said quietly, "don't stop when paper fails." 20 minutes later, we arrived at the attorney's office. Calm, polished glass doors, neutral carpet, framed certificates, the kind of place where families pretend to be civilized. Inside, the attorney greeted Grandpa warmly and glanced at me as if she recognized my face from old stories. "Mr. Carter," she said, "I'm glad you're here in person." Grandpa nodded toward me. "She stays with me," he said. Then he placed the sealed envelope on the desk. "Before we do anything," he said, "I want my son's call recorded and preserved." "You have the call?" the attorney asked, eyes sharp. I held up my phone. "Recorded," I said. "Speaker on. Voice is everything." The attorney nodded. "Good." Grandpa leaned forward, calm and firm. "Tell me what my son tried to file." She exhaled and turned her computer so he could see. "There was an inquiry this morning," she said, "from your son. He asked whether a death certificate had been issued and whether he could proceed with immediate estate administration." My stomach dropped. "He asked for a death certificate." Grandpa didn't flinch. "Yes," he said. Exactly what he expected. The attorney clicked again. "There was also an attempted change request," she continued, "to update your beneficiary contact information on 2 accounts." Grandpa's eyes narrowed slightly. "Which accounts?" he asked. The attorney hesitated for a brief moment, then answered. "The investment account," she said, "and the cabin property file." Grandpa leaned back, and in that moment the situation became clear to me. This was never just about cutting me out. It was about shutting me out quickly before I could interfere, while they moved money and access. Grandpa opened the manila folder and slid the bank alert across the desk. The attorney's eyes dropped to the page. Her expression changed as she read it. "This is a fraud alert," she said quietly. "Exactly," Grandpa replied. Then he tapped the sealed envelope once. "Now we open this," he said. The attorney nodded, watching him closely, as if she understood the next few minutes would determine whether this stayed a family dispute or became a criminal matter. Grandpa broke the seal slowly, no shaking, no pause. He removed a letter and a second, thicker document with an official stamp. He read a single line silently, then pushed it across the desk. "I want this filed today," he said. The attorney read it and went still. She looked up at Grandpa, her voice lower. "This appoints an executor," she said, "not your son." Grandpa nodded. "And it denies him access," she added, almost surprised by how direct it was. "Yes," Grandpa said, "because I know him." My throat tightened. The attorney swallowed and slid the document into a tray marked urgent. "All right," she said, professional again. We can file this, but once it's submitted, your son will be notified. Grandpa didn't blink. Let him, he said. Then he leaned forward. And I want one more thing. A statement on the record that I'm alive since he's already telling people I'm dead. The attorney nodded firmly. We can do that. She printed a form. Grandpa signed it, clean and deliberate. Then she turned her screen toward me. Your father attempted to access your grandfather's estate portal, she said. He used an old password recovery question. My stomach dropped. How would he know that? Grandpa answered before I could. Because your mother filled out my forms, he said quietly. For years. The room felt colder. The attorney looked up. Mr. Carter, she asked, do you have any reason to believe they possess physical documents with your signature? Grandpa looked at me. Yes, he said. And they tried to take them this morning. My phone buzzed. Another cabin alert. I opened the feed. 2 sheriff's vehicles were now in the driveway, lights flashing against patches of snow. The locksmith and my cousin froze. One deputy stepped out, hand near his belt, and shouted something we couldn't hear. The locksmith raised his hands. My cousin did not. He backed toward the woods. Grandpa leaned closer to my phone, his expression hard. Don't run, he murmured. On the screen, my cousin bolted out of frame. A deputy followed. The locksmith stayed. Then my phone buzzed again. Not an alert, a call from my father. I stared at the screen. Grandpa did too. He didn't tell me to answer. He simply slid the phone toward himself and said quietly, let's see what story he tries now. My father's name glowed on the screen. I didn't move. Grandpa tapped speaker and answered in the same calm voice he used when he wanted someone to reveal themselves without realizing it. Yes. For a brief moment, my father didn't speak, as if his mind couldn't process the sound of a dead man answering. Then he recovered. Dad, he said smoothly. Thank God. I'm coming to see you. We need to talk privately right now. Grandpa didn't engage. About what? He asked. My father exhaled, sounding reasonable. About her, he said. My stomach tightened. She's manipulating you. She's isolating you. People are worried. People. In my family, that word is never about concern. It's about pressure. Grandpa glanced at the attorney. She gave a small nod and quietly pressed a button on her desk phone. Recording active on her end, too. At 7:12 this morning, Grandpa said evenly, you told my granddaughter I was dead. My father's voice shifted to practice surprise. Dad, I didn't. You did, Grandpa replied calmly, and your wife laughed. Silence. Then my father's tone hardened. Fine, he snapped. You want the truth? We did it because we had to protect what's ours before she takes it. The attorney looked up. I felt cold. What is ours? Grandpa asked. The estate, my father said quickly, angry now. The accounts, the cabin, the land. You don't understand how this works. If she gets involved, it turns into a mess. Grandpa leaned slightly toward the speaker, making sure every word was clear on the recording. She is involved, he said. She's sitting beside me. My father's breath caught, small but noticeable. Then he shifted again. Dad, listen, he said, suddenly softer, almost pleading. Let's not do this through lawyers. I'll come to you. We'll settle this as a family. Grandpa's eyes didn't blink. You already chose lawyers, he said. You chose the bank at 648. You chose the registry. You chose the lockbox. My father's voice tightened. What lockbox? Grandpa waited one beat, letting the lie form. Then he said, the one your cousin tried to open 10 minutes ago. Another pause. Then, faint in the background, a muffled female voice, too close to the phone. Don't say anything. My mother. Grandpa heard it. So did the attorney. So did I. Grandpa's mouth tightened, but his voice remained controlled. I can hear her, he said. My father snapped loudly. She's not there. She is, Grandpa replied, and you're on speaker. You're being recorded. That word changed everything. My father's tone shifted instantly, like a mask dropping. Dad, he said carefully, this doesn't have to get ugly. We can handle this quietly. Grandpa gave him nothing. Tell me why you told my granddaughter to stay away from my attorney, he said. My father hesitated just long enough, then tried to assert authority. Because she's unstable, he said. She's been having episodes. She twists things. Everyone knows. The attorney's pen stopped moving. Grandpa's eyes turned colder. Everyone doesn't know, he said. You want it on paper, so she seems unreliable. My father raised his voice defensively. She's taking advantage of you. She has you in her kitchen, feeding you lies. I'm the one who brought the envelope, Grandpa said flatly. Not her. Silence followed. Then my father said, "The sentence that told me this was bigger than the cabin, Dad, the court is already involved." My stomach dropped. The attorney's head lifted slowly. "What?" Grandpa didn't react outwardly. He asked calmly, "What court?" My father tried to backpedal. I mean probate," he said quickly. "It's standard." The attorney reached for her keyboard and typed fast without asking permission. Grandpa watched her briefly, then turned back to the phone. "You filed something," he said. My father's voice rose, panicked. "No," he snapped. "I didn't file. I inquired." Grandpa didn't argue. He let the attorney continue. She stared at her screen, clicked twice, then froze. Her voice lowered. "Mr. Carter," she said, "there is a filing." My skin went cold. My father heard her and immediately barked, "Don't listen to her. That attorney works for her." The attorney ignored him. "Emergency petition," she said. "Temporary guardianship." I felt my breath leave my body. Grandpa didn't blink. "Guardianship," he repeated. The attorney's eyes flicked to me, then back to Grandpa. "It claims you are mentally incapacitated," she said. "It alleges you're being exploited." My father's voice came through, furious and triumphant. "It's for your own good," he snapped. "If you won't listen, the court will make you listen." Grandpa stared at the phone as if it were foreign. Then he spoke quietly, with a calm so sharp it unsettled me. "You tried to declare me dead at a bank," he said, "and when that failed—" He paused. "You tried to declare me incompetent in court." My father didn't deny it. He leaned into it. "You're not thinking clearly," he hissed. "You're making decisions out of spite. The court will protect you from her." The attorney scrolled again, her face tightening. "They requested an expedited hearing," she said. "Today? Today." My heartbeat pounded. Grandpa turned slightly to me. Not fear, not sadness, not apology. He hadn't just predicted they'd try to take his property. He had predicted they'd try to take him. Then the attorney added the detail that made my stomach drop harder. "They listed your cabin address as your current residence," she said, "meaning they were trying to establish that you lived there so they could control access through a court order tied to the property." Grandpa's voice stayed steady, colder now. "They planned this," he said. My phone buzzed. Another cabin camera alert. The attorney glanced down and whispered, "What now?" I opened it. The sheriff units were still at the cabin. The locksmith was seated on the porch steps. My father's cousin, caught near the tree line, was now being walked toward the driveway in cuffs. But the deputy holding him wasn't looking at the cousin. He was looking down at something in his hand. The deputy unfolded it on camera, read one line, and his posture changed. Then he lifted his radio and said something I couldn't hear. The attorney leaned closer, eyes narrowing. "What is that?" she whispered. I zoomed in until the pixels broke, but I could still make out the top line. Temporary guardianship order. Draft. A draft court order, already printed, already at the cabin, ready to be served. My throat went dry. Grandpa stared at the screen, then leaned toward the phone, toward my father, still on speaker, and whispered, "You brought the court to my front door." My father's answer came back, low and satisfied. "Not yet." My father's voice came through the speaker, quiet, precise, and controlled, like a knife sliding gently across skin. Grandpa didn't shout or rage. He simply stared at the phone, seeing my father clearly for the first time, then ended the call. One tap, silence. The attorney's office felt too orderly for what had just been said. "Okay," the attorney said. "Voice all business now. We move fast." She opened a new document and began typing as if she had been waiting for this moment. "First," she said, "we file an affidavit confirming that Mr. Carter is alive and competent. Second, we file an emergency response to the guardianship petition with all evidence of fraud attempts." Grandpa nodded calmly. "Use the call recording," he said. "And the bank alert?" I added. "And the cabin footage," the attorney said sharply. "And the fact that your son attempted a death process at the bank at 6:48 a.m., she continued, looking at Grandpa. "I need you to sign a statement right now." Grandpa took the pen without hesitation and signed cleanly, steady, deliberate. No trembling, no doubt. The attorney printed it immediately and slid it into a folder marked Filed Today. Then she turned her monitor toward us. "There's a hearing request set for 2 p.m., she said. "They're asking for expedited temporary guardianship." Grandpa's eyes narrowed slightly. "They won't get it." "They can't," the attorney corrected, tapping her screen. She clicked to pull up a list of attachments from my father's filing. My stomach sank when I saw it. A supporting statement with my name on it. "That's not mine," I said, leaning closer. The attorney opened it. It painted me as a predator. It claimed Grandpa was confused, isolated, and easily influenced. It claimed I had moved in, restricted access, controlled his medication. Medication? He wasn't even on any. My throat tightened. Grandpa stayed calm, but his eyes hardened. "They're building a story," he said. "Yes," the attorney replied. "A story designed to make a judge act fast." She scrolled to the signature line. Type name, not my father's, not my mother's. A third party. The attorney's voice dropped. "That witness is your father's cousin? The one at the cabin? In cuffs? The one caught with a locksmith?" Grandpa exhaled, controlled. "They wrote the script," he said, "and they sent the actor to the stage." The attorney didn't waste time. She called the judge's clerk. "This is counsel for Mr. Harold Carter. We have an emergency response to a guardianship petition, including evidence of attempted fraudulent death notification, active unlawful entry, and live video footage." She added, "Yes, I can email it now and file immediately." She hung up and looked at Grandpa. "Now we go to the cabin," she said. "If they're trying to serve a draft order there, we need to stop it." Grandpa nodded. "We're going." We drove up the mountain with the sheriff's number saved and the attorney's evidence email ready. I kept sending everything: call recording, bank alert, screenshots of the fake email, lockbox tamper log, porch footage. When we turned into the cabin driveway, it looked like the aftermath of a storm. 2 sheriff units, deputies moving calmly. The locksmith seated on the porch, pale and shaking. My father's cousin in cuffs near the tailgate. A deputy held a clipboard with paperwork, the same deputy I had seen earlier on camera. He saw Grandpa step out of the truck and his eyes widened. "Mr. Carter?" he said. Grandpa nodded once. "Alive," he replied. The deputy's posture shifted instantly. "Sir," the deputy said, "we recovered a printed draft order on site." He held it up. "Temporary guardianship order, draft." "Who printed that?" Grandpa asked. The deputy looked at the cousin. "He had it in his bag," he said, "along with a set of forms and a thumb drive." My stomach tightened. The deputy opened an evidence bag showing the drive through the plastic. "Also recovered," he said, "a folder labeled bank and another labeled property." Grandpa's jaw tightened slightly. The attorney wasn't there, but she had told us what mattered: intent, planning, and the paper trail, and now it was all in a deputy's hands. My father's cousin finally spoke, voice strained, trying to sound helpful. "I was just checking on the place. They asked me to." "Who asked you?" the deputy interrupted. The cousin hesitated. Grandpa stepped closer, calm but commanding. "Say his name," he said softly. The cousin swallowed, eyes darting. Then he said it. "Your son." Grandpa didn't react. He didn't have to. The deputy wrote it down, then looked up at him again and said something that made my skin prickle. "Sir, your son called our station earlier asking if we could confirm that you were deceased." Grandpa's eyes hardened. "He called you too." The deputy nodded. "Yes. And when we told him we couldn't verify that, he said he had paperwork on the way. Paperwork coming." The draft guardianship order wasn't a coincidence. That was the paperwork. I stepped onto the porch and looked at the cabin door. The lockbox was scratched. The door frame showed fresh marks where the locksmith had worked. A violation, small but unmistakable. Grandpa stepped beside me and studied the wood as if it were a wound. Then he reached into his coat and pulled out the sealed envelope from the attorney, the one he had kept unopened for hours. He handed it to me. "Open it here," he said. "Here?" I whispered. "Here," he repeated, "where they tried to take control." My hands shook as I broke the seal. Inside was a single page, simple and direct, a notarized amendment. It didn't just deny my father access. It named him. It listed the fraud attempts as grounds for immediate restriction. It appointed the executor with explicit authority to freeze accounts and block property access. At the bottom was Grandpa's final handwritten line, clear and unmistakable. "If anyone claims I'm dead, call the sheriff. If anyone claims I'm incompetent, play the recording." I covered my mouth, not crying, just stunned by how far ahead Grandpa had planned. The deputy read it and nodded. "That," he said quietly, "is about as clear as it gets." Grandpa looked toward the trees, then back at the driveway where his cousin stood in cuffs. Then he looked at me. "They called you and told you that you'd get nothing," he said. I nodded, my throat tight. Grandpa stayed calm. "They were right about one thing," he said. You get nothing from them. He rested a hand lightly on my shoulder. You get your life back. When we left the cabin, the deputies were still collecting evidence. The executor was already being notified. The bank would receive the fraud affidavit by the end of the day, and the attorney would walk into the 2 p.m. hearing with a recording of my parents laughing about my grandfather's death while he sat alive at my kitchen table. My father thought he could erase me with a single phone call. Instead, he documented himself. He tried to bring the court to Grandpa's door. Instead, he brought law enforcement into his own plan. And the outcome was simple. He didn't lose because I raised my voice. He lost because I stayed calm long enough for the truth to become a file.